Thank you, everyone, for joining. This is day 2 of the Thrive Summit, and we are kicking off with the one and only Cami Orange. She is a fat, queer, autistic boundary coach and speaker who helps entrepreneurs, leaders, and change makers communicate with clarity and confidence without guilt or second guessing. She is the author of this fabulous book that I highly recommend. I had the book before I met Cami, and so I was so excited when I met her and I was like, wait, let me get your book off my shelf. She is an absolute treasure, and she is going to take us through one more person, her own special sauce, talking about boundaries, how that applies as an entrepreneur, and beyond, because this is a perfect example of when you expand and you build a skill in service of your business, it pays dividends in all these other aspects of your life. And if you can, maybe businesses where you're motivated or it feels appropriate to get really good about your boundaries, that is going to serve you in every area. So I'm thrilled to turn it over to Cami Orange. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Olivia. Um, let's see, I set on speaker view, but I can see Olivia. I can't see myself. Hang on. There we go. Okay, now I can see myself. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I am so excited because this session is for boundaries for intuitive business leaders, which tells me a couple of things about you. So, first off, it tells me that you're an intuitive. And as a fellow intuitive, that is a really fast shortcut to better boundaries. And it's amazing to me that people live their lives not intuitively. I don't know how they do that. But to be able to use your intuition to set boundaries, that's something we're going to cover today. As you know, it's intuitive business leaders. So it also tells me that in some way, shape, or form, if you're coming to the summit, that you have a business or you have had a business or you're thinking about having a business. And what I love about being a business owner is that it is like self-development on steroids. And I have been an entrepreneur and business minded ever since I was a little girl. I read the Babysitter Club books and my thought was, oh, I can do that better. And so I did. And so I created the Fletcher Sister Sitter Service, and we made bank. Like, we did a really good job. And so I have been running businesses my whole life. And that is something that you and I have in common is, some way, shape, or form, you have a business, I have a business, we have that in common. And then the last piece is, intuitive business leaders, you're a leader. And what is a leader? That could be you're a leader in your home, you could be a leader in your community, you could be a leader of like people, projects, or really just like changing the world, right? Like this perspectives and processes and all of that. And so it doesn't necessarily mean, oh, you have to have solid boundaries because you're a leader of people. This still applies even if you are a leader of projects or just kind of changing the world, like I said. So, intuitive business leaders, and we're talking about how to say no without guilt and yes without burnout. And so, I am going to go over who I am and kind of my background. I'm going to talk about what our main tools are that we're covering today. And we are going to dive into a little bit the different ways that your intuition will help you create boundaries. So, first, who am I? As Olivia said, I'm Cami Orange. I'm a boundary coach. And I got started as a boundary coach because I collect boundary phrases. And I started doing that because I'm autistic. And I realized I was like, oh, I need like a better way to say things. And so I started writing them down and writing them down and writing them down. And as I have had different businesses throughout my life, I thought I was there to like I had a clothing retail company and I was a wardrobe mentor. So I would go to people's homes and help them go through their closets and kind of figure out what they're wearing, matching their energy. and how they wanted to show up. And I'm there to like literally go through their clothes and put things in totes and bags, right? And they're like, so my husband doesn't like this outfit and he thinks I shouldn't have it anymore, but I still want to keep it. What should I do? And I was like, oh, boundaries. And I worked as a business consultant and I would travel around the country and stay with small business owners and help them put their businesses online. That was a really fun part of my career. And I'm there, like I said, to like help them build a website, help put their stuff online. I would go to events with them and like run their booths and, set up their um, all their signage and all of the things. And so I'm there to like do that stuff, right? Talk about their brands. And they're like, so I have this client that keeps texting me at like 10 o'clock at night, and I'm not liking that. And I don't know what to do because it's a client who paid me a lot of money. And I was like, oh, boundaries. And there was a season where I was working as a spiritual teacher and I was teaching people how to access their intuition and how to access their spiritual gifts and how to communicate with their entourage, which are their, angels or ancestors or guides or whoever that walk around with us. And, again, I'm there to do like spiritual woo woo stuff. And I was like, okay, these people are all very bad at boundaries. And I remember one client in particular that, we were having a conversation and I was like, your house is like full of like the dead, right? Which is fine. Like if people want that, that's fine. But I personally don't. I don't like other people in my house. And she's like, oh, I keep inviting them because I just don't ever want to say no. And I was like, do you want them there? And she's like, well, I can't, there's nothing I can do about it. And I was like, you need boundaries. And so all of these things kind of combined. And then I closed my spiritual teacher business at the end of 2019. And I was like, okay, I think I'm going to like teach workshops and do this like cool in-person business plan. And then, 2020 happened. And so instead of in person, I went online and I did really, really well on I went from like 0 followers to 12,000 followers in less than 12 days. And it just exploded. So I'm at, I think like 280,000 followers on TikTok now. I've had several videos go very viral. Those viral videos got picked up by news outlets. I got covered in like BuzzFeed and Yahoo and we're not talking like New York Times, but like still it got picked up and that was cool. And as part of that process, I got an email from a publisher and she said, hi, I'm so and so. I'm with Hay House, and this is what Hay House is. And I was like, I know what Hay House is. Are you kidding me? I know what Hay House is. I grew up on Hay House books. Like, I could get a Louise Hay tattoo. Are you kidding me? And so, if you're in like the woo woo world, Hay House is like the number one like woo woo publisher. And it was founded by Louise Hay. That's why it's called Hay House. And so I was so flabbergasted that they reached out to me to say, hey, we love your work. Will you do a book with us? And I said, okay. And so that's where Say the Thing, the book came from. And that is kind of my tagline is like, so throughout this whole presentation, I'm going to be like, remember to say the thing, make sure you say the thing. It's how I sign off my videos. Because ultimately, if you don't get anything else out of this, my goal and my intention is that you feel the permission to say the thing. Say the thing that needs to be said. Say how you feel. Ask for what you want. Yeah, we have to release the expectations, but like, it's okay to speak up and say the thing. Your voice is powerful. You are uniquely qualified to say things that nobody else can say. And again, you're an intuitive business leader that tells me you are extra, extra qualified. Intuitive, super qualified. Business, extra qualified. Leader, to the top. Like, this is amazing. And so it is okay for you to say the thing. And even if you're watching this and you're none of those things, you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm, I'm not a business owner or I don't know if I'm a leader. You're still here because you're intuitive. Otherwise, why would you have clicked on this? Why would you have shown up? So you're qualified to say the thing. So that's a little bit about me. I, like Olivia said, have a book. I sell digital products online. I teach people about boundaries. And it's been this interesting journey because that was never the plan. And I'm sure you've seen this in your own lives. I was never like, oh, I'm going to do this when I grow up. It was, I've done all of these different things. And then when I took a step back through the pandemic and kind of looked at the thread, I was like, oh, no matter where I go and no matter what I do, people ask me about boundaries. Maybe I should be a boundary coach. And here we are. So that's, like I said, we're going to cover who are you, who am I? And now let's dive in. What is a boundary? To me, the most basic definition of a boundary is what is okay and what is not okay. That's what a boundary is. What is okay, what is not okay. There are multiple layers of nuance that some people teach. They're like, oh, a boundary is something that only you can do, or a boundary is this, or a boundary is that. Like, there's layers and layers and layers. That is okay. If you find joy and delight in going into all the layers of nuance, go forth. I could send you a list of books and people that teach that I actually recommend. I think they're great. For me personally, the clients that I work with, the basic definition of what is okay and what is not okay has been the most helpful and effective. And as a intuitive and yet practical person, effectiveness is what really matters to me. And so a boundary is what's okay and what's not okay, which is kind of the theme of this whole presentation. We're going to talk about a tool I call a yes session. And we're going to talk about, like I said, your intuition. And mostly we're going to go into a bunch of boundary phrases, ways to say no. Because again, that's my specialty is yes, I can teach you all of the different nuances of boundaries, but ultimately, when it comes to the moment of actually setting a boundary, what are you going to say? How do you actually set the boundary? What are you supposed to say? I'm here. That is my specialty. That is what I do. And so I, like I said, we're going to go through these tools, and not everybody has, how do I say this? I'm sure you've heard the expression, and if you haven't, welcome. This is the first time. If you can't, it's not a real yes if you can't say no. Like if you can't actually say no, it's not a true yes. And so many people that I work with, one of the things that I do is I test their yes and I test their no. And this is why I said being an intuitive person will really support you in setting boundaries, because you are able to access what is a solid yes for you, what is a solid no. And that is a powerful skill. I have like a 10 out of 10 powerful yes. Why? Because I have a 10 out of 10 powerful no. I have full permission to say no to anything, anytime, anywhere, anyone. Like, I will say no if I want to say no. I don't do things I don't want to do. Is there a lot of privilege baked into that? Absolutely. And even if it's a circumstance where it's like, oh, I've got to do that, like I get to choose in, instead of it being like, oh, this external force is happening upon me and I must. I'm like, okay, I'm choosing this situation. I'm choosing this circumstance. I'm choosing to say yes to this. And I'm talking like basic stuff, right? Like the window in our car, like the glass like fell down into the door, and nobody would be like, oh, you chose that. Like I don't believe that. But like I still got to pick, oh, I'm going to the mechanic. I still got to pick, oh, this is what the mechanic is saying needs to happen. I still got to choose into that. Because what was my other choice? You might say, oh, you don't have another choice. I do. We could just like put plastic over it. We could leave it like parked outside. Like, I don't know. Like, we have another vehicle that doesn't drive as well or as often, but like we could drive that vehicle. Like, I'm choosing into this. And so my hope and if I could wave a magic wand and say, ta-da, like you're all transformed, what I would give you is a solid 10 out of 10 yes, because you have a solid 10 out of 10 no. Most people just out walking around, especially people who are women and femmes, their no is like a 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10. Occasionally you meet people who are like 4 out of 10. Most people have a weak no. And that is not your fault necessarily. Like, you have lived a life where people have said, hey, you don't get to choose. You don't get that power. Like, this is not something that you get to say yes or no to. And so I'm not blaming anybody. And this is not an invitation to shame to say, oh, well, you should have developed a no by now. Like, no, 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 no. We're not doing that here.
Can you give us an example of what a weak no is or how a weak no shows up?
Absolutely. So I I'm a plant parent. I have 18 house plants and a garden, and I deeply love them. The additional context would be we moved like 25 times before I was 17, and then I've moved almost 30 times as an adult. And so to finally be in a place where I can like grow plants is really, really emotionally powerful for me. And I deeply love my plants. So like the context here is like I'm not just like, oh, I have plants. Like I've been homeless, and when you're homeless, you don't have houseplants. And so like the fact that I have 18 houseplants is deeply important to me. And my cactus outside, deeply important to me. Um, I gave one to my neighbor, and then she's letting it die. And I have been way up in my feels about it because it's on the front porch directly across from where we live. And so I've been watching it slowly die. And I gave it to her because she was like a new plant mom, and I was like, oh, this will be great. She can have a cactus. And watching this plant die, I was like, oh my gosh, okay. So I talked to my husband, and I was like, how awkward would it be if I stole the plant back? He's like, obviously don't do that. I was like, I'm not really going to do that. But this part of me is like, I must save the plant baby. And so I texted her to be like, hey, I was wondering if I could buy this plant back from you. Like the plant that I gave her that she's letting die on the porch, I offered her money, cash money, to buy it. And she has always been somebody who gets back to me like she's that person that like you text her, she's texted you back within 5 minutes. Like the whole time I've known her, the whole couple of years we've lived here, always. She didn't text me back. I know she saw it, but she didn't text me back. And so I gave it like 24 hours. And then I text her again and be like, it is okay to say no. Like if this is not something you want to do, it's obvious, like it was a gift at your plant. Again, didn't text me back. 2 weeks go by. She's avoiding us. She's ducking into the doorway. Like if we're coming in and she's coming out, like it has been awkward and weird. And finally she texted me. She's like, I think I want to keep it. And I was like, cool. I already figured that out based on your lack of response over the last 2 weeks. But she has a weak no. I said, hey, can I buy this plant back from you? Instead of just being like, no, I want to keep it. It's like 2 weeks of avoidance. She saw my text. I was like, has she been stewing over this? Like, what is going on? Like, obviously not my problem to solve. Bless her. I hope she figures herself out. But is that plant still dying on her porch? 100%. And I've just loved it and let it go. I did my best to save it. It's fine. Um, so that would be an example of somebody with a weak no. Another example would be during the pandemic, I was living with a partner and we were doing a lot of projects because, we're stuck at home. We're like, oh, let's like redo the back deck and things. And so we did, project A, we did the fence. Project B, we did the roof. Project C, we replaced the front doors. Project D, we did the back deck. We had literally done so many huge projects in like a 6-month period, which I wasn't paying for. If he wants to do that, that's fine. I love projects. And, Capricorn Venus over here, I was like, oh, projects are love. But we got to a point where he was burned out on projects. And I was like, oh, we could do this other project, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, and I was like, what's going on? Because, it's a more intimate relationship. And I was like, he's like, I can't say no. And I was like, okay, but do you want to? He's like, no. And I was like, so no, let's not do it. He's like, yeah, but I don't want to say no. And I was like, why don't you want to say no? He's like, because saying no is bad or makes me bad or I am bad. And like all of the beliefs bubble to the surface that like to say no means you're a bad person. And I was like, it's okay to say no. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say, do you know what? We've done 5 major projects in less than 6 months. I don't want to do another one. that is okay. You have full permission. And that moment really transformed some things in our relationship because we realized that I have been operating under the assumption that he would say no if he meant no. And turns out he had been saying yes, even when he wanted to say no, and had been building resentment over time because he's like, oh, she keeps asking me for these things. And so I'm going to give you a hint. If you are someone who holds a lot of resentment towards others, it's probably because you have a weak no, because they said something and you didn't say no. You said yes, and now you're mad that they asked you to make, 4 dozen cookies for the bake sale, and you didn't want to, but you said yes anyway, and now you're pissed about it. And I was like, okay, but why didn't you say no? And they're like, well, I can't say no. Why not? It's not a real yes if you can't say no. It's not a real yes if you can't say no. Like, think about it in the most basic level of consent, right? Like, if I was like, hi, Olivia, may I hug you? If Olivia doesn't feel empowered to say, no, I don't want to hug, that's not a real yes when Olivia says yes to that hug. Like, it's not actual consent because there's no power to say no. And we see that all the time with like, power dynamics, if there's coercion or if there's like, hey, I'm your boss and can fire you, and that I'm vindictive and will. But like, will you give me a hug? Is that person going to say no? No, they're not. Like, it's not a real yes if you can't say no. So that leads us into our first tool that we're covering, which is, I call it a yes session. Something that is amazing about intuitive people, specifically intuitive business owners, business leaders, is we are surrounded by good opportunities. Oh my gosh, there's so many good opportunities. Do you want to do a podcast? Okay. Do you want to create this new product? Yes. Like, do you want to speak at this conference? Yes. Do you want to publish a book? Yes. Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? They're all good. And instead of the struggle being like, oh, well, this is a bad choice and this is a good choice, most of our choices are good, especially as a business owner in like the 2025 information age. Like, there's so many options of how to do your business. And if you are surrounded by good choices and your only skill set is like, well, I can tell between a good choice and a bad choice, but you can't differentiate between a good choice, and a great choice, you're going to really have a hard time. You're going to get a little overwhelmed. Hint, if you get overwhelmed with your business, it's possible that you have a weak no. And that's okay. This is a skill you can develop. And so the first tool I'm going to offer you is what I call a yes session, like YES, yes session. And basically, at some point in a ritualistic, rhythmic manner, some people, it's like their monthly cycles. Some people are not, cycle people. I have clients that have done this on like, they do it on the dark of the moon. Some people do it like the first Monday of every month because they're like, I have a calendar. Why would I not use it? Like, whatever works and makes sense to your brain, do that. If you're a moon person, do the moon. If you're, like, oh, I do this during my luteal phase, do that. If it's first Monday of every month, put it on your calendar. But basically, it's an invitation to spend 3 minutes. It doesn't take longer than that to go, okay, what are all of the things I've said yes to since the last time I did this? Are these all still things I want to do? And it's okay if they are. Great. Continue. Done. And if they're not, consider saying no. And the way to know is like, okay, are you feeling really overwhelmed? Are you feeling resentful? Are you feeling frustrated? Is every time that client is texting you, you're going, oh, I can't stand them. Okay, why did you take them on as a client? Why, like, if you don't like them, why are you working with them? Like, well, I need money. Do you need their money? Do you really need their money? Like, I understand needing money. Like I said, I've been homeless. Nobody's judging me doing things for money at this point. Also, if the amount of stress that one client is giving you is costing you your peace to the point that you can't show up with your other clients, that is not the right money. That is not the right client for you. I've had clients oh my goodness, I had this lovely client, lovely client. We had a really great dynamic. And because he was having such good progress, he referred his friend to me. And if I'm doing like a high ticket coaching package, we'll always do an initial call to see if we're a good fit. It is an audition process. I don't work with everybody. I'm not a good fit for everybody. And the minute we got on the phone, we're like 60 seconds in, I was like, oh, this is not a fit. And so, I can let it go for about 5 minutes. And then I was like, hey, thank you so much for your interest. I can tell we're not a fit as, coach and client. So I'm going to decline. And he got real bristly and he was like, well, why? And I said, every single thing I've said, you've pushed back and you've pushed back hard. Like you want me to justify who I am, what I do, all of the work that I do. And that's okay if you need that high level of proof. Here's my website, here's my stuff. Also, I am not interested in working with clients where every single little piece of advice I give, I have to like justify, 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 justify. This is an intuitive process. Either you believe me or you don't. Like, I can't justify beyond your belief. And he's like, well, I'll pay you double. And at that point, did I need money? I needed money. And I was like, no, like I have a strong yes and a strong no. And I knew, and this is, we're going to get into this when we talk about intuitions. I'm a knowing, I'm a seeing knowing. And I was like, my knowing tells me this is not a fit. And he's like, okay, I'll double that. So like my usual rate, he wanted to pay me 4 times as much. And I was like, universe, really? Like, are we testing the yes and no today? Like testing my commitment. And I said, no. He was mad. And so I was like, okay, I gotta go. Bye. And hung up the phone, immediately texted the client who was his friend and referred him. I was like, just so you know, you're probably going to get a call from so-and-so. And he's not happy because I said, no, he can't be my client. And he's like, yeah, he's calling me right now. I was like, good luck. Not my problem to solve. Because I know I have a strong yes and a strong no. And my knowing was telling me, no, do not work with this. Like, this is the amount of money he's going to pay me is not worth the piece it will cost me. Did I need his money? For sure. But like, did other opportunities work out within the next like 2 days that same amount of money showed up for me? Yeah. In ways that were easy and smooth and felt like a strong yes. Again, strong yes, strong no. So, first tool, like I said, is a yes session. I'm going to invite you to genuinely, like, as we're watching this, be like, okay, when can I schedule this? How, like, do I want to tie it to my luteal phase? Do I want to tie it to the moon? Do I want to tie it to the calendar? And if monthly is too often for you, do it quarterly. Even if you just do it once a year. I have people that they do it like that's their New Year's Eve like thing once a year, is they look at all of the different things they have going on and anything that is causing resentment, frustration, irritation, overwhelm. That doesn't mean you quit hard things. That's not what I'm saying. Like, it's okay to do challenging things, but there's a difference between challenging and like, oh my God, I hate this. This makes me not want to do this anymore. I want to quit my business because I'm doing this. Like, and whether it's a client, it's a project, it's something that you overcommitted yourself to, and now you really don't want to follow through, but like you have to. And so when I was growing up, obviously I'm a very unique person. I have a very unique background. And one of the things that my parents taught me is that if something is hard at all, it is a sign from God to not do it. And that's not true. Because there was no differentiation between like, okay, like going for a run can be hard. That doesn't mean God is saying, don't go for a run. You know what I mean? Like, but I was given full permission to not do things. And as I've gone out into the big wide world and, lived all multiple states across the country and had relationships and lived, lots of adventures, I would rather be me where I'm like full on, I'm going to quit things that I don't want to do than people who they stick with it. Oh my gosh, I met this guy and he's like worked at his job for 17 years. And I was like, do you love it? He's like, no, I deeply hate it every day. And I was like, could you leave? He's like, probably. And I was like, why don't you? And he's like, well, then I would have to quit, and quitters are bad. Like, it's bad to be a quitter. And so I'm not saying quit everything. I am inviting you to question if you go, oh, I can't quit that. Just take a moment and say, why? Why can't I quit this? If you got asked to, chaperone a field trip that you like really cannot and don't have the time and energy to do, but you're like, oh, but I can't say no. I'm not saying you have to say no, but give yourself the respect, the honor of like taking even just 3 seconds to be like, where does this come from? Why do I believe this? It's like, oh, the guy who's been at his job for 17 years, like, and he hates it, but he's still there because he can't quit because quitters are bad. And I was like, so what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm just being bad at it until they fire me. And I was like, how is this better? That doesn't make sense. Like, do your life, dude. But no. Versus like, I got a call center job many years ago because, need money. When you're a business owner, sometimes your income goes up and down, you get jobs. And so I was there for 1 week of training, 1 week on the phones, and I was like, this is not a fit for me. We are genuinely scamming people. And guess what? End of the story. I was right. I got contacted like 4 years later. They got shut down by the FTC. And I was like, called it, scam. They were 100% scamming old people out of their money. And I was like, I'm not doing this for a job. that doesn't fit my ethics. But I went into the manager's office and it was like, hey, this isn't a fit for me. I'm quitting. Today's my last day. And she got so mad and she's like, if you quit this, you quit every day for the rest of your life. And I was like, again, autistic. I have no chill. And I was like, are you trying to shame me into staying at this call center job where you're like underpaying us? And I'm pretty sure we're scamming people. And she's like, we're not scamming people. And she kept shouting at me all the way out of the building, all the way out to my car. Like, she was very mad. And I want to be like, ma'am, if you're feeling the compulsion to spend 10 minutes telling me like in a big loud way that we are definitely not scamming people, have you considered that we probably are scamming people? Just people who are not scamming people be like, no, we're not scamming people. And it's like non-emotional. Anyway, I so that is the yes session tool, is schedule that into your life. As far as take a look at everything and just take a moment and say, okay, am I saying yes because I want to say yes, or am I saying yes because I couldn't say no? And it will help you build your strong yes, strong no. So, what do you do once you realized, oh, this is not a fit? I don't want to do this anymore. So now we're going to get into boundary phrases. And like I said, I collect boundary phrases. I have piles of them. And my whole book is like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. Like the whole chunk of the book, it's really more of a reference book of like, it's organized by topic, and you can go in and say, okay, people are commenting on my body. Here's like so many different ways you can say it. I'm not expecting you to say it the way I say it. And so as I give you these boundary phrases, please know you have full permission to be like, oh, I like that idea. I'm going to adapt it in a way that sounds like me. Don't talk like me, talk like you. Like, I have this very autistic, overly educated like way of speaking. People call it overly formal. Personally, I like it. I think I'm clear. But when you exist on the internet and make videos long enough, people are like, oh, you sound like a fill in the blank. And so I'm aware that not everybody likes the way I talk, and that's fine. So make it sound like you. It doesn't have to sound like me. But the idea of like, hey, how are you going to say, I am not going to bring 4 dozen cookies to the bake sale? I need to withdraw. I cannot chaperone this field trip. And so figuring out your phrases is really, really key. And that brings us to our second tool is I highly, highly, highly recommend picking 1, 2, maybe 3 if you need them because you have a lot going on in your life. Boundary phrases that prevent you from saying yes when what you need is to say no. And what happens is a good opportunity shows up. Somebody's very excited about it. And they go, oh my gosh, hey, do you want to do this thing? And if you're still developing your strong yes and strong no, your training, your lifetime might kick in and be like, oh yeah, sure. When really you're going, I don't know if I want to do that. Or you're not sure if it's a good fit for you. And as an intuitive, you need to give yourself time to like be an intuitive. If you like, sure, if you have a strong yes, strong no, like for me at this point in my life, I have 20, plus years of practice. Like I am I don't know if you speak like human design, like I'm a sacral authority. I have like that solid gut knowing yes, no. Like I know in an instant somebody's like, hey, do you want to do this thing? No. Hey, do you want to do this thing? Yes. Like it's very like when Olivia was like, hey, do you want to speak at this thing? Yes. Did I want to get up at 8 a.m.? No, because I'm in Utah. No, I am not a morning person. I only did this because I like Olivia. But like, did I want to speak at the thing? And because I got a strong yes to speaking at the thing, then when she told me it's going to be at 8 a.m. for you, I was like, okay. But my point is, I have on tap, like, I have pre-prepared a couple of statements that if I do need a minute to feel my feelings, to check in with my intuition before committing one way or the other, I have those phrases. And they are very similar to the phrases you would use if you do your yes session and you go, oh, I need to withdraw from this. Like, I need to quit this. I need to kindly and directly quit whatever this is. So, the phrases that, like I said, you don't need all of these. I'm going to go through some, and there's going to be 1, 2, maybe 3 that pop out to you. You're like, oh, I like that. Some variation of that will work for me. Pick that one, write that down, memorize that for yourself. The goal is not that you have memorized an entire library of phrases. The goal is you've picked like 1, 2, or 3 phrases that work for you specifically, and that will allow you to say yes when you want to say yes. And more importantly, say no when you want to say no. So if you do your yes session and then you need to like message them or talk to them and say, I'm not doing this anymore, a phrase you could use is, I've really enjoyed being part of this. And maybe being part of this is like being part of this group or being part of this club or being part of this team or whatever, project, whatever. And I've realized I need to do something else now. Like, again, kind. I really enjoyed this. This is not a fit anymore. Or I could say, I have realized I have to pick between a good thing like this and a great thing like time with my kids. And so I need to prioritize time with my kids now. Again, is that kind? Yeah. Yeah. What jerk is going to be like, oh, you want to pick time with your children? Okay. If they say that, that's their problem. That has nothing to do with you. Like, and I think it's okay to realize you are surrounded by good opportunities. You can pick the handful that are great. You can pick the handful that you're like, oh, these are my favorite. These are the ones I really want to do. I'm going to say yes to this, full on complete yes to this, which means I need to say no to these things. Because I'm going to tell you a secret. And maybe you've already figured this out as a business owner, but the more you're in business, the more opportunities show up. I probably this week, like between now and like a week ago, had at least 4 separate things where people are like, hey, do you want to do this? Hey, do you want to do this? Hey, do you want to do this? Are they all good things? Yeah. Did I say yes to any of them? No. But like, are they good things? Yes. We don't have to say yes to every good thing. There's no scarcity of good opportunities as an intuitive business leader. Like, there's no scarcity. There's so many good options. I pick the ones that are great for me. And you can do that too. So, another way you could say this, another boundary phrase would be, my schedule is too full and I need to keep some other promises I've made. Again, kind, direct, but like, nope. And so notice you could use these phrases to say yes or no in the moment. You could use these phrases to quit, like kindly quit and go back later, whatever that project is. Another one you could say is, this is not something I can be part of anymore. That one to me comes across a little bit more like I'm judging what's going on, but sometimes that's appropriate. Sometimes that's appropriate. Sometimes the direction that the group has gone, you're like, nope, this is veering into territory that I'm not comfortable with. And so you say, yeah, this is not something I can be part of anymore. Another phrase is, I have overcommitted myself and need to step back now. Again, is that kind? Yeah. Is that direct? Yeah. And there's very few people who, if you are kind and direct, who are going to throw a fit about it. Guess what? If they throw a fit, it's not because you did something wrong. It's because most likely they are operating their emotional life from a stuck emotional age, and bless them. Hopefully they figure that out. So another phrase that I like is, unfortunately, what the group needs and what I can give doesn't match anymore. So I need to quit effective of this date. Kind, direct. Again, you don't have to memorize all of these. This is not like, and there's so many more of these in my book if you want them. But you also have permission if there's a specific situation. Anybody here live, anybody watching this later, you're welcome to send me an email and be like, hey, I have this situation. What phrase should I say? And if it's quick, I'll just email you back. If it's longer, I'll probably do a video and post that. And so this is my jam. I love to do boundary phrases. And if you're like, I don't know how to say no, I don't know how to set this boundary in this circumstance. It's my father-in-law. He wants me to host dinner for the fifth year in a row. And the family has kind of outgrown our house and it's really uncomfortable, but nobody else can host dinner, blah, 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 blah. What do I do? And be like, okay, first off, we're going to breathe and say, thank you so much for the privilege of hosting for the last couple of years. I think the family has outgrown our space. And so we need to find a third location. I looked at this restaurant or this restaurant. Which one do you think is a better fit? It's okay to say no. It's okay to say no. Strong yes, strong no. Okay. Let me make sure I covered all of my phrases. Oh, the last thing I was going to say with that, if you are quitting a group where there is a time commitment or there's things like that, I personally think the kindest thing you can do is be very clear on exactly when you are done. Do not do the thing where you're like, hey, I just need to step back, but nobody knows that means you're going to stop going to the meetings and you're not going to show up anymore starting on Wednesday. That's not kind. Kind, Brene Brown says kind is clear or clear is kind, whatever that is. I got to quote her and then I can't say it. And so say, hey, as of Wednesday, Wednesday will be my last meeting. I will not be going moving forward. And I think often we don't want to hurt people's feelings. And so we resist being specific. But honestly, the specifics help most people. I would say 80% of the time specifics are helpful. And 20% of the time people are like, oh, why are you being so specific? And it's okay, if they're resisting specificity, again, that's their issue, not my problem to solve. So hopefully some of those boundary phrases will give you some ideas as far as your yes session, strong yes, strong no. So now what we are going to dive into is why, as an intuitive, you are uniquely qualified to set boundaries. And that's why this session is, intuitive business leaders, because my specialty is intuition. As I mentioned before, we moved all the time growing up before I moved out at 17. And then when I went out into the big wide world, I didn't have a lot of skills. But one of the skills I did have is my spiritual gifts. And so I started working as a psychic medium. And you learn a lot about people real quick when you work with them and their dead family. And so my gifts primarily are seeing and knowing, or how my intuition shows up. And so my experience is that there's my light source for me it's a sentient universe. Like my husband, Mr. Orange, his light source, if you want to call that, is like the fire of his ancestors. I have a friend that hers is like Mother Earth. I have another friend that, she's Christian, so it's like a great and powerful God. Like, it doesn't really matter from my perspective, like who or what your light source is. A who would be like a being, like a deity, right? And a what would be the universe, the earth, the collective consciousness. And some people are like, well, I don't really believe in all that woo woo. I just like think, people are good. I was like, oh, okay. So like the goodness of mankind is your light source. Cool beans. And so whatever or whoever you believe in, you have a connection to that. And the way that connection is established, to me, that's your intuition. That's the most basic definition that I could use. Is like there's me, there's universe, the connection between us, how the universe and I communicate, that's my intuition. And in general, most people, 80% of people fall within 5 categories. And then there's the weirdos, the 20% who some other combination. And so we're going to go over the main 5, and how that applies to boundaries, especially as a business leader, an intuitive business leader. And I will also cover, you're like, none of those apply to me. Okay, you're probably one of the weirdos. That is wonderful. Welcome. We love you. So, seeing, hearing, feeling, sensing, and knowing are the main 5. Most people have one of these. Most people, it runs in a family. So, like, if your mom is a seer, your grandma is a seer, most likely you're going to be a seer. And one of the joys of my life is working with people who have intuitive parents themselves and then intuitive children. And we can kind of like trace through who got what combination, what side of the family it comes from. So, seeing, hearing, feeling, sensing, knowing. So, like I've been saying, I'm a seeing. And seeing is, as it sounds like, I can see things. Like I can see energy, I can see the dead, I can see all that kind of stuff. Oh, I wanted to clarify. I retired as a psychic medium because I realized that people who are grieving, their brains are not like online very well. And I realized really quickly, I was like, oh, I don't ever want to risk accidentally taking advantage of someone. And it happened, I had a client, a couple that their son had died, and I was doing it by donation, and they gave me like a ton of money, and they were wealthy and they could afford it, but they were so grateful that I helped them talk to their son and find closure that I was like, oh, we're not doing this anymore. So I'm no longer a psychic medium, so don't reach out for that because grieving people, it's basically like temporary Alzheimer's, and like I never want to risk somebody who doesn't have the resources to pay for something, like giving me money that they can't afford because they desperately want to talk to their dead family member. Like, I'm not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. It goes against my ethics. Again, strong yes, strong no. So, but part of my gifts is like, I can, like the movie says, I can see dead people. Like, but like, I grew up with that. So to me, this is not weird. I was like, yeah, can't everybody? Turns out they can't. So seeing can be seeing energy, and some people it's seeing with your third eye, some people it's seeing like in your mind's eye, some people it's actual like seeing, and they have a hard time differentiating between what's there and what's not there. I'm not talking like you're crazy. I'm talking your light source, the connection between you, your intuition. So that's seeing. Signs, symbols. You ask your intuition, you ask your light source, say, hey, should I do this? Or I want to do this, what is the thing? And your intuition will communicate to you through seeing. I have a friend that she's a seeing, and she asked her light source, she's like, hey, I need a sign. I need a sign. I specifically, the project she was working on, she's like, I need a sign with an eagle. Like she wanted to see an eagle. She's like, hey, that will tell me this is the right path. This is what I need to do. And at the time she was driving, and I've driven with this lady. I have never in my life, she has an affinity for birds. Like we're driving, there's no birds. And then suddenly she's driving down the road and like birds are like coming in and landing on the wires. And I was like, what is your life? This is wild. So she was expecting to see an actual eagle, right? But if you've been intuitive long enough, the universe, your light source, whatever, sense of humor. So she's driving. She's like, I need a sign with an eagle. I need a sign with an eagle. And she comes around this corner, and there's this big billboard with what? An eagle for like a cigarette brand. And she's like, are you joking? Are you serious? Like, but what did she want? She wanted to see a sign that this was a yes, there was a sign. There was a literal sign with an eagle. Like, there you go. So, seeing, one type of intuition. Hearing, hearing can be like music. You can hear messages from like different words, like it can actually be words in your mind. Some people, it's like a voice, and sometimes it's just words. And so, people who their intuition shows up in hearing, they often are very good with words. And so, if you're saying, "Oh, I want to say yes," or "I want to say no," they'll like get that message in a particular way. And one aspect of that, uh, I have this friend that she was like trying to make a decision. She's a very prayerful person. And she's like, okay, what do I do? What do I do? And it was specifically around abundance. And it was, the message she kept getting from her light source was, like abundance basically grows on trees. And she's like, what does that even mean? What does that mean? So simultaneously, unbeknownst to me, this is what she's like at home meditating, working on. I'm driving down the road and I passed, like, I was approaching like a fruit stand, and I was like, oh, and I get the knowing and the message where it was like, on the seeing level, it almost looks like it lights up, like it like catches my attention. But then my knowing is like, stop at the fruit stand. And I was like, I don't want to stop at the fruit stand. What am I as one single person going to do with an entire box of fruit? This is a bad idea. And it was like, stop at the fruit stand. I was like, okay. So I stop at the fruit stand and I was like, what am I supposed to get? And it was like this box of peaches. And I was like, okay. So then I get back in my car and it was like, go to this particular friend's house and drop off peaches. And I was like, oh, good. I don't have to. I keep a peach for myself? Yes, I did. But like, what? Have you seen a box of peaches? What was I going to do with a whole box? So thankfully, this was an intuitive mission. I did not have to keep that box of peaches. So I drive over to her house, knock on her door, and go, here. Right at the exact same time, her light source has been like, abundance is like from a tree, and like abundance like grows on trees. And she was like, and then like her friend, who I've also been like her coach and her mentor, knocks on her door to be like, here is an abundance of fruit for you and your family. And it's like, she got the message. She got the message. Not only did she get it directly from her light source, she got it from me. I said some variation. Did I know in that moment? Like, no, but like, was I on a mission? Sure. And so hearing is another way that your intuition might show up. So if you're in a situation where you're like, oh, do I say yes? Do I say no? You need to give yourself time to basically talk to your light source, use your intuition, and get the message. Feeling.
I'm just gonna
So,
jump in
yes.
quickly because we are a little over time. I know people are going to have to drop off very soon. So if you want to touch on these in like an abbreviated version so you can cover
Sure.
them all, that would be lovely.
Yes. Thank you so much. I am full screen, so I didn't see my clock. Thank you so much, Livia. So feeling is like a hot and cold, yes or no. And it's your emotions. So feeling is on the inside. And then sensing is like physical on the outside. You can sense the energy. You can walk into a room and be like, oh, like something happened here. And then knowing, like I said, it's that gut, yes, no, there wasn't an answer. There is an answer. So, how this applies as an intuitive business leader is that when you are in a situation where somebody's like, hey, here's a good opportunity. Do you want to say yes to this? You have a predetermined phrase where you say, oh, let me think about that and I'll get back to you. Oh, I can't make a decision on that without looking at my calendar. I will get back to you. I'm not sure. Let me check with my husband and I'll talk to you later. Whatever you need to say, pick your phrase that gives you time to check in with your intuition, whether you're a seeing, a hearing, feeling, sensing, knowing. Um, and the other ones, for the very small handful of people who will show up that are the weirdos, bless your hearts, would be like dreams, nature, messengers, or something else. I met this lady that the way that she gets her intuition is she goes and sticks her head in the ocean. Works for her every single time. Is that something I ever want to do? No. But does that work for her? Yes. How did she figure that out? She grew up by the ocean. Like, so if you're not feeling like seeing, hearing, feeling, sensing, knowing, you're like, oh, I don't think that's how my intuition works. That's okay. Like, Do whatever works for you. The point I'm trying to make is to have a strong yes and a strong no. It is important to give yourself time as an intuitive to use your intuition to say, okay, is this what I want to do? And build into your calendar, build into your life a ritual of saying, okay, I said yes to all these things, do a yes session. What are the things I still want to say yes to? And again, you can use your intuition for that. And now you have boundary phrases to kindly quit the things you need to quit or give yourself time to think about them in the moment. And obviously, my book has so many boundary phrases for all the other scenarios that you'll run into. So, that in summary is boundaries for intuitive business leaders. Saying no without guilt and yes without burnout is by Cami Orange.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much, Olivia.
This was phenomenal. Folks, if you have just 30 seconds, I would love to hear your biggest takeaway. So, what is one thing you are walking away from this session with? I took so many notes, but if you could drop in the chat, like the number one headline. Yeah, we have time for a question, Leah. Go ahead.
Good morning.
Hi.
Thank you so much, Cami. Cami, this is what I want to know. I have no problem saying no, and I've got my intuition. My problem is being raised by a narcissistic parent who shamed me for saying no, and also society shaming you for saying no and projecting on you and gaslighting you. And so my question is, I love everything you've said, but how do you handle then when you're gaslit or punished or shamed or projected on? Because as an intuitive, that's what's difficult, is how to deal with that. I can say my
Yeah.
no, I can be clear with my big girl words, but I don't know how to deal with the repercussion of the no.
Yeah. So for you specifically, Leah, may I be a little bit intuitive? Is that okay? Because if I check in on your intuit, like your energy, it might move a little bit. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay. So you have a big energy. Some people are more of a compact energy. Some people are more of an expansive energy. And you as an individual have a big energy, which means every time you make a choice, there are ripples that are, picture it kind of like dropping a pebble in a pond versus dropping like a boulder in a pond. You are the boulder. So your energy is moving their energy. So what you're seeing from them is their emotional reaction to the movement they are experiencing that they are uncomfortable with. So specifically like the mother or some of these other people who are trying to punish you, it's because you're saying, hey, I'm inviting you to make a new choice. I'm inviting, by me saying yes to this or me saying no to this, I'm inviting you to be creative, be smart, figure something out. Like, let's live a more beautiful, intuitive, expansive life. You don't have to say that with your words for your energy to be shouting very loudly. And they're like, no, I'm very committed to like this, like very closed, tight-fisted discomfort. That is my story, and I'm not giving that up. And so every time you go, hey, you could choose bigger, you could choose differently, and they're like, oh, I don't like this feeling, so it must be her fault. And so my
Right.
invitation to you would be getting very, very clear, because I can tell from your energy that you have a very strong yes, you have a strong no. The piece that you are missing is like, what is mine and what is theirs? What who does this belong to? When their energy ripples because you exist, does it belong to you? No. So I would say you're probably like a 4 out of 10 right now of taking, like, saying this is mine even when it's not yours. And it's okay to let that go. The only reason they're upset is because of their own story. It's not because you did anything wrong. You make good choices. Like, you consistently make good intuitive choices. And their discomfort is because you're inviting them to live bigger and more fully, and they don't want to. And that's not your fault.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question? Is there anything else with that I can answer? Oh, okay. Oh, computer glitching. Okay, perfect. Olivia, do we want to answer any more questions or are we over time?
We are over time, if people need to drop off, by all means. But if you have another question, I'm fine staying on. It sounds like you're okay staying on, Cami,
Yeah.
feel free to come off mute or drop them in the chat. And I'm just going to read a few of the key takeaways while people have the chance to formulate questions. So Angela says a 10 out of 10 out of 10, yes, 10 out of 10, no. And if you can't say no, it's not an honest yes. Anne Marie loves the affirmation of being a weirdo, also loves having the script and phrases to use. Setting the boundary can make me nervous, so having the phrases is helpful. Halsey says having a couple back pocket phrases. Charlotte talks about definitely not a real yes if you can't say no, and confirmed that I have a weak no for now, but I'm sure that's getting stronger. I love the reminder that as an intuitive, you need to give yourself time to be an intuitive. Megan wants to meet with you to discuss intuitive traits. And thanks for the reminder that it's okay to say no. Awesome. Thank you. I don't see any other questions coming through. What an absolute treat. I got so much out of this. I know everyone else did. We've got more coming for folks in the Thrive Summit at noon Eastern. Brandon, one of the most magnetic people I know, is going to teach us how he does it. And then this afternoon, we have Brittany talking about selfish goals, which I think is such a lovely coda to where we started the day. And then, of course, more goodness on Thursday and Friday. So thank you, Cami. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And thank you, everyone who made time to watch the replay. Kudos to you. All right. Bye, y'all.